Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with comics creator artist Ryan Oakley. Ryan, thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be on this podcast.
Yeah, a pleasure to have you. I
Yeah.
know that you have some really cool work in the world of uh, a series of images called Plainclothes X-Men. This is very
hmm
cool, very interesting.
Yeah.
And you've also been featured in a number of anthologies. So we'll kind of trace a little way through your work here. What led you to the world of comics?
So how I was introduced to comics and these characters was through animation.
Hmm.
Um, I wasn't necessarily going to a comic book store like at a very young age like some other creators, but I loved all the different animated series that came out in like the 90s. So like Batman the animated series. I really love Spider-Man the animated series. That was like one of my favorites, and I really love that kind of really helped me to like really like Spider-Man, and I really love the way they depicted him in um that series, the sensitive but also like sassy and kind of he's gonna get those jokes off. Um and then as I got a little bit older, I got into Teen Titans. I was really big into Teen Titans animated series. Um, in middle school and stuff and going to high school. And then it wasn't until high school that I actually like started going to a comic book shop. And that was when they were doing DC, I'll say they, but DC Comics was doing the new 52. They were restarting a lot of different characters. A lot of people to kind of jump in and get some new readers. And so I was one of those, and I picked up Batgirl, and specifically because I had known about Adam Hughes's art before actually getting into comics. So I knew a lot of the art per se, but hadn't actually like opened up a book. And had all these different like comics encyclopedias. So I was really like into characters, which is probably why I do a lot of like character design now. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and kind of looking at their histories and stuff. But so yeah, so I picked up the background in 52 because I knew that Adam Hughes was going to be doing the covers for that series, and Gail Simone was going to be writing on it as well, and I had kind of put together that she had done some writing on some of my favorite episodes in like Justice League, so that was another. Um, animated series I loved when I was younger. And so I think that got me started. And then I kind of took a break, and that's when I went to college and was like focusing more on like medical school, and then also just art in more of like the traditional sense, learning painting, oil painting and stuff like that. And so after I decided I didn't want to continue with medical school, I got into creating bipartisan artwork for different organizations and nonprofits and stuff. And from there I kind of tried to incorporate these like comic themes that I like loved. And I started teaching myself comics and like teaching myself pages, how to do sequentials or comic pages, however you want to say it. And also just drawing and getting better at anatomy. I knew that I was like not where I wanted to be in order to like draw comics and stuff. So I started practicing and learning from different artists. I remember I would do like master copies of different artists like Frazetta and stuff like that, just to kind of figure
Mhm.
out like my own style and what I liked. Um, and so that kind of has all evolved into what Ryan is today. And um, but yeah, animation, because I really thought I was going to be an animator, and then I saw the process and what was involved in
Yeah.
animation, and I was like, I don't know about that one. And so comics is kind of like there's a lot of overlap in those worlds, and you could look at comics as almost like the storyboards for maybe an animated feature or something like that. Um, but also still similar, still difficult. Like, doing a illustrated piece versus doing common pages is a little bit different. And I like to think of it as, different parts of a whole that have to work together compared to just having one piece that you kind of make cohesive. So that's kind of like how I got into it. And then I started once I felt good about like my skills and like where I was, I started doing like fan art and drawing people's different characters. And um I attended Heroes Con for the first time and with one of my friends just to check it out because I had been told like, oh, this is where you want a table, like you should be
Hmm.
tabling
Hmm.
there. And so I attended and I was like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, a really unique and really awesome con. And, people go there definitely about art. And so COVID hit, and then after that, once cons started opening up again, I applied and I got accepted. And to my delight and surprise, I was put in Indie Island. But at that point, it had been a couple years since I had attended, so I had time to build and do work and then build a pretty cool and unique portfolio that I think stood out. And then I felt like I was a fresh face too, and I was local, and so I think that was very interesting for them, and they probably wanted to see who I was. And so then I got to, meet some of the organizers, and now we're friends now, and so that has been a great connection, but it was, something that I worked at, and continued at it. And it was nice to have someone else who didn't know me kind of confirm that hard work and kind of see what I was doing and kind of get what I was doing. So yeah, and so now I'm tabling everywhere, trying to table everywhere now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Heroes fan. That's a great show. And as you were talking about like your medical interest and path, I was thinking, what a great lesson in anatomy for character design. I mean, yeah, that's maybe a link that people wouldn't necessarily connect, but I love that pathway.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that even translated like 'cause I still took art courses, so I majored in studio art in undergrad along with a major in Spanish. And so I was still doing art. It just wasn't the main focus at that time. And but I think it kind of translated into when I was doing figure drawing. I really enjoyed it and excelled at the figure drawing courses that we had. And um I even like started designing my own characters using the different models and stuff like that. And that was something one of my drawing professors thought was really cool and kind of pushed me into doing more of that, which I like, really appreciate her for doing that as well too.
What are you currently exploring in your work? And then, by the same token, any nods to inspiration that you'd like to mention? It sounds like you and I have a lot of shared love of animation from the 90s. I was also a Batman animated series fan, and the
Yeah.
Spider-Man animated series was great. So any nods
Yeah.
there?
Um, I don't know about stylistically from there. I think I think from watch having the have watched the animated series, whenever I do my commissions, I really like to know like kind of what the character's personality is. And so I'll watch the show as like my research. Just because it like I don't know, it kind of informs my design a little bit better. And I think the characters in those shows like had such strong, distinct personalities and characterization that kind of like I don't know, maybe imprinted on me wanting to want to like get to know these characters before I actually draw them, So, um, but I think having like an art background though, I definitely do like pull from illustrators more as far as like visual things that I like. There's like all these different illustrators that I pull from, but like one of them, Gil Elfgren, he was a pinup artist who I kind of started to study. And then as I like grew, I got into Frazetta a little bit more and Sergio Topi. He's I believe Italian comic artist, illustrator. Even just like being inspired by some of like the different Japanese artists and anime kind of just in it just I'm just very interested in how they attempt to tell stories and tell stories. So I try and pull from different things as well, and I also kind of like trying to create my own look, which I think that's why a lot of people like my art because it is so like unique. Still freeze is definitely like, an inspiration of mine. I think it's like shown in my like watercolor work. I think a lot of people point that out. Like you can see Adam Hughes' influence just from the good girl look, but I think it comes more from me like liking the pinup artist, which has that similar look to what Adam Hughes does. Rockwell and Lacey Decker's work for sure is another one. Just because even like his characters kind of look like comic book characters in a way, the way he does them.
Hmm.
They have like very like bold lines, but then I love how even though it's like painted, they have like these like um strokes that like kind of give it shape, but it also gives the image texture too. So um I'm big on texture even in like my digital work because I like really hate when my work looks very like airbrushed and it looks digital. So I really try to make my pieces not look digital. And that was one thing that I kept on having to correct people at Heroes was they thought my X-Men pieces were done traditionally, which was like really cool. But they weren't, and they were just prints of digital pieces that I had done. So,
Oh,
yeah, pat on my back, I guess.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Any aspirations in the field that you'd like to pursue? Ideal projects, collaborations, things of that nature.
Yeah, right now I'm like working on writing my own stuff. I kind of started to do that, but I definitely want to like do my own creator own. That's like definitely long term down the road. But right now I'm kind of working on teaching myself what I want to do and like what my style is for comic pages.
Mhm.
Specifically, something that is like still true to me, but also that is not going to be taxing on me. Just because the way that I do pinups doesn't really necessarily translate that well into doing um, pages, and that is like for me, like health and not being so taxing on your body is important. And so, and I do, like a more cartoony simplistic style, contrary to what my artwork is, but I think a lot of people tend to like the opposite of what they do anyway. So,
Mhm.
um, so I'm trying to find like a nice happy medium that like feels like me, but that I can like, replicate over multiple pages and stuff. So, yes, right now I'm just trying to write small stories and practice, and definitely I would love to be able to do like a cover run of some sort. I don't really care what character, I love drawing characters and interpreting them in my own style. So like, if I ever get the opportunity to do like a cover run for some sort of character, it could be anybody, to be honest. I just, really enjoy being in the space of comics, so I'm not too picky on what it is. I think it's definitely a blessing and an honor to be able to do art and to have people, spend their hard earned money on what it is that you do. So, um, yeah, like anything. Yeah. Give me opportunity and I will rise to the occasion. So right now I'm trying to work with more indie, smaller creators, for cover, if they want a variant cover, um, or even do like some short stories as well, and have been lucky enough to do a short story with Stephanie Williams, and then
Oh,
we're
nice,
trying,
nice.
yeah,
Your
and we're
company.
trying, yes, yeah, definitely. She doesn't think she's like a mentor, but I like to think so. She tries to, give me the props that I'm doing all the work, which I am. I'm putting in the work, and so she's just there to support. So, and I appreciate that. Um, and so we also have another project. She signed us up, Midnight Mystics, um, which is a anthology of all Black femme and queer writers. And so that's on a Kickstarter that we're trying to get funded to do. And so that's
Nice.
another project that we'll be working on. Maybe we'll get to see some of my writing on there too. So
Cool.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm just trying to do everything, and like even down to like coloring, like a lot of the anthology stuff that I do, like I'm the penciler, the inker, and then the colorist, and then also sometimes the letterer. So um yeah, I'm just trying to learn every part of the comics business and how to make a comic as well. Just because it's pretty
Yeah.
cool, and I think it just makes you a better artist and better at whatever section you decide to kind of narrow in. And but also it's also good to have those skills. You never know. You might be able to help somebody out on a project if if you have a good handle on color, or you can ink, or you're good at penciling and stuff like that. So
I'm an
cool.
educator, and so I always like to ask you advice for young creators. If you were to go back and talk to a younger you, anything that you might mention as far as the comic space.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I always say is like, if you know you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. I think that's the one thing I regret was just not going out and like pursuing the art. Because even if you don't end up doing comics, you'll figure out what it is that you want to do as far as like the art world. Like I was saying, I thought I wanted to do animation, but I never really got a chance to explore that. But I did. Um, I did end up getting back to my art, and that led me to comics again in a different way outside of like animation. Um, so yeah, if you feel like you have an interest in it, like do it and like give 100%, Don't just halfway do it because it's anything you do is going to be hard work, and to stay in it is going to be hard work as well. So and I think a lot of people, see the success, but they don't see like the hard work that people put in to get there, because they weren't there
Yeah.
for those moments. And but another more like less preachy and practical advice that I give that helped me, and I think that got me exposure is especially with the how I got to do some projects for Adobe was you if there's databases, so I don't know if people do it as often as much, but when I was kind of getting into these art spaces, there were different art databases that you could put your information out on, and
Hmm.
contact
Hmm.
information. And so that's how I got found by Lifetime TV. They were trying to find um, female artists of color for a project. And so good on them because they did their due diligence and actually sought out and did the hard work of trying to find artists. And so they went on these different databases. And so they found me on there and liked my portfolio. So have a portfolio, big one. It doesn't have to be perfect or fancy. Mine is super simple. Just have some grids and some information on the project that you're doing. But do that. Do open calls that require you just to submit a portfolio compared to you having to make a piece of artwork. Because if a company is having you make a piece of artwork, they're literally exploiting you for your labor. That's if they want art and work, they should be, like I said, doing the work to find those artists and looking through those portfolios to see who's a good fit. Um, but on the flip side, I did do some of those open calls that required you to get art, and I was selected out of, submissions. But it's about weighing, I guess, what is beneficial to you and not. And so if you feel like, okay, well, even if I don't win this one, I can get a nice like piece that can go into my portfolio, then yes, do it. But don't waste your time. If don't just
Mhm.
do it just to do it, like, make it benefit you in the long run. Um, and I think more places are requiring portfolios more so than just you creating a piece outright, which that, like I said, kind of just gives you an idea of what that company and that organization is about, anyways, too. Because they're not going
Yeah.
to want you to do labor. A good company's not going to want you to do labor um, for free and then use your image, pay you a little bit of change and then use your image for forever after that. um so that's like one of the biggest things that I advise, because I see a lot of people that get caught up in the loop of open calls, and then they're you know make doing all this work and then hoping they get selected, and they're upset that they're not selected. Going
Mhm.
in go I think if you go in there realizing that you might not get selected, but go in there making a piece that you can be happy with and put in your portfolio, and it's something that you like and it's in your style and it's you. Yeah. um I think that's a great one. And my last one I think that helped me is like being realistic with like where you are with your skills. Um Comics is still a business. There is going to be they are looking for professional looking work. So it's okay to
Mhm.
compare yourself to an extent. You don't have to have the same style as Daniel Warren Johnson or Sanford Green, but you need to have the polish of their level. Is your anatomy up to par? You can be stylized, but does it make sense? Like those two people are very stylized, but their anatomy and different things still make sense. Um, and once you figure out those areas, work on those, get better at that. Practice using reference, drawing from reference, or doing those life drawing courses, because that trains your eye to be able to basically draw everything. And
Mhm.
then there's different things that you can tweak, and there's different tips and stuff that you can get along the way from other artists. But I think that those are great places to start in, and just be realistic with yourself, and that's okay. Like I said, compare yourself to an extent, but use that as a way to say where you need to improve. So
Wonderful and rich information. I love it. Yeah. Now, you mentioned Heroes, so I hope you're
Mhm.
back there next year. I'd love to see you in person there.
Yeah.
Other conventions, online spaces, or
Mhm.
anything that you'd like to mention about where people can find you and what's next for you.
Yeah. Um, my next convention is going to be Atlantic Comic Con. That one's in Norfolk, Virginia. And then after that, I think I'm going to be tabling at this might be the inaugural NC Comic Con. I think it's being, I mean, excuse me, Greensboro Comic Con. I think it's being put on by the people who do NC Comic Con or
Oh,
Durham Comic Con. Alan Gill at Ultimate Comics. So, yeah, so I'll be doing that, but that would be my next one after, I think that would be in September. So, Atlanta Comic Con is in August. The Greensboro Comic Con is in September, and then the Big Lick is coming to Greensboro, so I'll be tabling there. And that'll be kind of it for me as far as 2025. And I hope to have some projects done, maybe some short stories done, or maybe even I do plan on making a zine for my plainclothes design X-Men and adding some stuff. So I definitely want to start working on that. So with the cons, it's like I don't really get much work done there. So it's a lot of talking and doing the networking thing and selling stuff, doing the business thing. And then
mhm.
outside of that, with the day job, I'm also trying to balance, different commissions. So I definitely want to get some time for myself and my projects too. But that other stuff is definitely more is important as well. So
Yeah, yeah, very cool.
mhm.
At some point, we should talk writing process. We might do a follow-up talk sometime about that as well as you're getting into short stories.
Yeah.
You have a website.
Yes. Well, It's in my, so if you follow me on Instagram, it's Ryan Oakley
Hmm.
Art. In my bio, it has links to everything. Um, but I think my website is either under Heart Studio. I think so. That's gonna be my portfolio.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
Ryan Oakley Art, from Instagram will take you everywhere. And I'm on Blue Sky as well as Ryan Oakley Art. Pretty much everywhere it's Ryan Oakley Art. And so yeah, that is where you can find me. That's where I am mostly.
Many thanks and glad to have you back anytime.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been great, and thank you for listening.